Hey, what is up, everybody? Hunter here with another interview. This one a little different speed than everything else, but that's what I try to do, bring on interesting people and talk about interesting topics that can relate back to the Web3 space. Now, today's guest, OX Designer, is a UI and UX phenomenon. He's well known for his design series, Design Every Day, where he was designing new UIs and user experiences every single day and posting that on Twitter. But he's also well known for being a Comic Sans, I would say, champion. He loves Comic Sans, thinks it should be used more, and we talk about that right off the bat with this stream. But yes, I think UI and UX is one of those topics that must be discussed because you have to get it right for the next wave of participants to want to engage and make it easier to engage with the Web3 ecosystem. As always, thank you for tuning in. Love to have you here. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Here's OX Designer. Oh, and before we start here, I have to, just for you, I changed the overlay here for the top left from one of my favorite fonts to Comic Sans. Just to add that little bit of spice to the overlay. Um,
Incredible, incredible. Listen, I love Comic Sans, and it's like almost so much so that I'm starting to notice that most people are like associating me with a spokesperson, which I will gladly accept.
I look, we're live. Let's just jump right into it. Comic Sans, I originally, and I think the first real big kind of splash in this case we saw was virtuals this cycle use it. Um, and it always used to be for most people this like, oh, that's childish, that's dumb. But now it's making a comeback, and you are I associate you with kind of the face of Comic Sans.
I'm so honored. Yeah, I've been like associating it with my own personal brand for years. Like every Design Every Days collection that I've ever created has used Comic Sans in the collection page, like the gallery,
Really.
and all of my own like personal branding assets, like a Twitter banner or like even legal, like contractual documents have Comic Sans in it.
What can you get into the nitty-gritty of that? Because fonts are more than like, that's a characteristic, and I think it kind of, conveys a mood per se, but to have kind of Comic Sans in a legal document feels counterintuitive to a lot of people. Is that just kind of like a "F you" to the establishment in some sense?
Well, I think all of crypto is an FU to the establishment, isn't it?
That is
That's why Comic Sans is like the perfect intersection for like any crypto touch point.
that
I
is
think
true.
people love to hate Comic Sans, and for good reason. Like it's whimsical. It really takes a little bit of work to make it look good, but it like people always think I'm joking when I say this, like because everyone loves to hate it. It's always like kind of tongue in cheek when referencing or using Comic Sans, but it's like a a great way to represent like some kind of like rebellion.
That's what it feels
Like
like.
you, you remember? I don't know if you're like a sneakerhead, but in like the late 2010s, people started wearing New Balance, and it
Yep.
was like always known as like the dad shoe, and it was just like lame. It was corny, and then it just like skyrocketed to like the
Yep.
top of the fashion
The
industry.
993s were a game changer there.
Yeah, exactly. And like Crocs, same thing. Like
Yep.
you were a insufferable tourist if you were seen walking around with like any version of Crocs, and now all of a sudden they're like a core component of streetwear. Like Comic Sans needs to have that moment.
I feel like we're in the middle of it. Like we're actually seeing it happen. We're seeing very serious tech companies and tech teams be like, "Fuck it, Comic Sans." Um,
Which ones?
I mean, I think again, Virtuals was the first one where people were fading that at sub 30 million market cap, and because they're like, well, they use Comic Sans, and they ran all the way up to 5 billion. There was hundreds of X's there that people faded purely from Comic Sans, and I think that was like I genuinely think that was a moment where a lot of people just went and said, "Okay, maybe my, like, feelings about Comic Sans and it costing me, millions of dollars, maybe I should rethink this font." I know that sounds insane, but I genuinely think for a lot of people, virtuals change their view on the font.
I'm starting to see more use of Comic Sans, like, specifically in the crypto sphere, and I don't know about you, but I still consider that, like, kind of niche. Like, I wanna see Comic Sans in, like, a Web2 company, and to be honest, like, a few companies are sneaking it in, like, I don't know how often you use Instagram, but when you create an Instagram story, the playful font that you can use as an overlay on your story is Comic Sans. But even that's like it's perfect because there's like a backstory behind that is like the designer that was leading the charge on that did it almost like in like a cheeky way, like it was like a funny joke, and it was like the perfect. It's like the perfect way that this thing can sneak up
Yep.
on even more mainstream apps. Like I would love to see that.
What what company or where would you want to see, like, if you could make it appear anywhere, like, would that be Apple starting to, because that feels like the most rebellious place that you could see, like, imagine the company that has been all about this, like, absolute, almost, like, surgical and sterile brand, all of a sudden you see them use Comic Sans, that would throw people off.
Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, there are like more mainstream apps that are using it, but, like, still as a joke. Like, if you I don't know if you ever tried this, but if you Google Comic Sans, the whole page renders in Comic Sans.
Oh my, that is absolutely fantastic. Everything is in wow, okay, this is like, it is like its own little, it's almost, it gives meme coin vibes in some way, right? Like there's this very tight-knit community of people who've kind of just been like, "No, like I love Comic Sans. This
And
is
by
it."
tight knit and by tight knit, you mean, like, designers. Like, it's definitely a
Design,
designer joke.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there is a meme coin for Comic Sans, but I don't think it's gonna have, like, any escape velocity because it's like, I think like, it being a joke in, like, the designer community is definitely too niche because
Mm.
like, I don't know, crypto Twitter and the design Twitter, like, never intersect. But I did try playing it. I think it's a fascinating social experiment to use meme coins to, like, meme the joke to a bigger scale.
Yep.
Like, I made an Eliza bot, and it was up for, like, 90 minutes because it just got like, farmed like crazy. But it was an Eliza bot that could detect an image if it had Comic Sans in it. So there was, Shoni.eth helped me build it, and it was like this plugin that could detect fonts from an image, which is actually like surprisingly hard to do. And if you had Comic Sans, it would then respond to your image, ask for your wallet address, and then I was just like loading it with Comic Sans the token, and it would just like it would send you Comic Sans. And so there's this like fascinating social experiment. Like if there's aligned financial incentive for everyone to make something that is uncool cool, to me that's like the perfect use case for a meme coin. Like, can we take something that everyone hates, uh, tokenize it, and then give everyone like financial upside for persuade? It's like it's the basic like pyramid scheme, but for making something cool that is not cool.
Wouldn't that be like incentivized culture? Wouldn't that kind of fall under that kind of guise of, we see incentivized social posting, and, Yaps I think is a good example of that, but that would be like incentivized culture to, okay, wait, this is cool now because there's an incentive for it to be cool.
Right, right. Either to be cool or to just like spread the joke because I love it.
I think more companies should do it in the space. I think we should value companies that do it higher. I think that should be a buying point. It should almost be a category on like Deck Screener, like Comic Sans, yes or no. That I would love to get to that point. I know you would.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny to watch the social experiment play out because it's hard to like, meme coins are used as a way to capture, um, like, for value capture for value that already exists, versus the other way around, which is this experiment that I'm describing right now, which is,
hmm.
can you create value by, like, establishing the coin and then having the value increase bottom up? Like, if you send this coin to enough people, will they opt into the joke and then continue proliferating it versus like chill guy is already viral on TikTok. Let's make a coin out of it because everyone already knows what it is, and then we want to speculate on whether it will like go up or down.
Yeah,
So
there's
so I don't know if that's gonna work.
a dynamic of being early versus, something having momentum. That is a huge dynamic in the space. We definitely have seen that where people will just they want to see it that like it's going somewhere already or that it's been established. Um, but that's the difficulty when there's like actual finances involved. And we joked about it before the show started. Like that is why most people show up here is for finances and to make profit. That's what they want. Um, Real quick before we get too far into this conversation, I want to kind of set the stage. We've had a great first 10 minutes here chatting on Comic Sans, but OX designer, I think we need to basically set the stage for who you are and your take on and how kind of you view the world through your UI UX lens.
Where do you want me to start?
I mean, what I guess we should dive into like what you've done and background and then I guess why this conversation around UI UX is pretty important for not only the web3 space but for all product stuff.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief, just like some context and background for like even just like the reason why I'm putting out the content that I put out
Yep.
around UX. Um, I've been like investing in crypto since 2016, but like was never an active participant. Like I didn't have a Twitter until 2021, and I never checked the prices. I was just like, this stuff's going to be valuable someday. I'll throw a little bit of money in it, like most people are doing year after year after year. It's just like I was at that point where it was interesting enough, but not interesting enough for me to like learn more about it, just enough to throw some money and think about it as like an investment. And then the NFT stuff happened, and I was just so fascinated by all the creative possibilities that are unlocked. Because all of a sudden, crypto transitioned from this financial medium, this financial technology, to a creative technology, and we saw that with PFPs, art, and just like all of the conversations around like objects and things that could be tokenized as opposed to this just being like number go up or number go down.
Right.
And I was so fascinated by that. It pulled me in so hard. I was like I went so far down the rabbit hole, just like completely changed my career trajectory because of how fascinated I was by just like all these new possibilities. And started trading PFPs and stuff on OpenSea and had a really long-term view on it all with like really high conviction. And as we know, like these cycles are so um, rooted in attention that like when the NFTs crashed, it was so jarring for me because I'd never experienced
Hmm.
like the back end of a cycle. And so it was like emotionally hard to watch all these things that I round tripped, like virtually like draw down 60, 70, 80, 90% eventually. And so part of my motivation to make design every day is the content series where I'm posting like new UX ideas for like blockchain apps or like crypto use cases. Was just as like a reminder of the thing that I was so excited about when I was like pulled into the space. And like that was my like emotional regulation for how I was managing like just the pain of the NFT crash.
Hmm.
And along that way it just became like because I for like all of my adult career I've worked in like software and UX and like interfaces, interaction design, and it was just like such a really great opportunity during the bear market to like reflect on all the things that were so hard to use, so confusing to use. Because I remember being so fascinated by NFTs and just like I could not. I was that guy. Have you seen that meme of the guy like at the urinal, and then there's the dude that walks up to it,
Oh
and like
yeah, yeah. And he's
it
like,
is like
"Can I
there's
tell
like
you about my
100 urinals.
NFTs?"
Yeah, I was that guy, and I like all I wanted to do is talk to my friends about NFTs, and like either they thought it was just like completely ridiculous, or like if they wanted to participate, they couldn't because I had to like literally talk them through the process of like getting a wallet and just
Right.
going through
Yeah.
this entire experience. And I was so motivated that I was able to, like, overlook all of the difficulties. But, like, I realized when I was telling my friends to, like, come into this playground with me, that it was, like, impossible to just get them to do it without wanting to give up because it was
Mm.
so complicated. And, yeah, it just became so clear that, like, there was all this, like, really interesting stuff happening, but I couldn't share it with, like, the people in my life because they either didn't have the patience or it was just too technical. And so it just became glaringly obvious that, like, there's a massive UX gap, and I just became so immersed in this, like, dynamic in, particularly, like, in, like, the Ethereum community for how everything is so, like, technically, like, led. Like, everything is so technical, and it's, like, made by developers, it's made for developers. Like, even some of the artists, that were, highly regarded, during the NFT, like, the rise of NFTs,
Yep.
were artists that could code, and, like, how many artists do you know that could code?
Right.
And so, I don't know,
Yeah.
it just became my personality that, like, crypto is hard to use, let's fix it.
From a perspective of like what the future holds for this space to get to like this grand vision, one thing that has to change though is it can't be it can't be art for uh coders. It can't be designed for program. Like it needs to be so that a common person cannot feel like they've just been thrown into, dropped in the middle of a jungle and said, "Okay, good luck." Um And, like, I always refer back to block explorers feel like the most archaic way of, and obviously, like, you do need to use block explorers, but it's not intuitive, right? Like, you feel like you're just being dropped into an Excel sheet. What's your take on, like, what the future has to look like from a UI and UX experience for users? I think Privy being a pretty common one that most talk about.
Yeah, I think, like, the space has come a long way. Crypto in 2025 is, unrecognizable from 2021, 2022, and even 2023. There's been an incredible amount of progress being made. I think, there's a moment where Phantom was, like, the number 1 most downloaded wallet.
Yep.
I don't know if it's or not wallet, it was the number 1 downloaded app globally, and this was when there was, a few weeks or a few months back when there was, like, a lot of meme coin activity. And honestly, Phantom deserves a lot of credit because I think, a big part of that is, like, if you want someone to buy a meme coin, the process can just be, like, download a single app, you can on-ramp on that app, and you can trade on that app.
Mm,
Whereas, like, for people who've been in the space long enough for you and I, the process was very fragmented and fractured. So
yeah.
it's
I mean,
get
it
a
was like,
Coinbase account,
yep.
KYC, and buy crypto, then download a wallet app, then figure out the process of going to the wallet app, get the address, paste it into the exchange like Coinbase, send it, and then take that wallet and connect it to another app in your browser, and then do the thing that you have to. It's just like there were so many steps, and so I think like converging all these into one single place because that's just that's our mental model.
Yep.
And by R, I mean like the general population. You just download one app and do the thing that you want to do there.
That there will be somebody will get it right where NFTs, fungible tokens, portfolios, community, everything is just in one spot. I don't know who that's gonna be. I think,
Oh, we can name I can name a lot of people that are already doing that well. Like
I
Phantom is one,
okay.
Moonshot is one. Um, there are some wallets like Coinbase Wallet that are doing a really good job of like surfacing things to do in the wallet, so you don't have to go into your browser.
Mm,
I think you can generate like on all these NFT marketplaces, you can generate an embedded wallet. So if your goal is to just buy an NFT on OpenSea, I think I haven't done this in a while, but I think you can just like use your embedded wallet and on ramp there.
oh,
So most of the apps that we were using in 2021
yeah.
have pretty much solved this problem, and it's just a matter of like, okay, now that we can do all this, like what else can we do besides swapping coins and then tracking numbers?
Yeah. I
That's where it gets interesting.
do you think what do you think that new like green pasture is? In my opinion, I think it's like content, rich context, media, because we haven't seen that at all. Like even commenting. There's no commenting on any of these marketplaces for assets. Um, I think that's kind of crazy. Like I compare like OpenSea and these, Magic Eden, and I look at them versus if I were to go look at buying a car on like um bring a trailer. It's a way different experience, but it's a very similar like buying environment. Um and that makes me always think about like, okay, that's a Web 2 company operating at like the modern day Web 2, but we still have Web 3 companies that haven't gotten to modern day Web 2 yet. They're still stuck in this like Web 3, Web 3, Web 3.
Yeah. I think so. Just to go back, I was expressing my enthusiasm for the possibilities that I was discovering in 2021 when we were all just speculating on the future of NFTs.
Mhm.
And it sort of unlocked this way of thinking where the term I like to use is interoperability. Like I'm a complete interoperability maxi. And what that means in simple terms is just that you can do something on one app and then it will appear on another app. So like we can already we already kind of do this when we authorize like our Twitter to use some crypto app. Like what's that Kaito thing?
Oh,
Yap, is
yeah,
it
yeah, gaps, yaps.
Yaps? Like, I can log in with my Twitter, authorize my Twitter, and it has my profile picture, it has my bio, and it's porting all of my tweets, so it's tracking my Twitter activity, and then, like so I'm doing something on Twitter, and I'm reaping benefits from that on another app. Like, the thing that's mind-blowing to me is that you can do that with, like, all of your data online. So, like, Twitter would never do this because this goes against their interests. Farcaster is proving to be a good example of how this works. But if I follow you on one app and then I try a new social app that's like Twitter, but in like TikTok form, and I'm more interested in like video content than I am this like written content. Like that, when I use this new app, I don't have to follow you again, and you don't have to follow me again. And like this is what's so fascinating about blockchain is that like you can own that data. You can follow it. You can own that follow. And when when I say you can own your data, you can own your identity, you can own all these things. Sometimes like you can monetize that. Sometimes you can trade it. Sometimes you can buy and sell it. But oftentimes like it doesn't have to be that valuable in a market for it to be valuable to you. Like in this this social graph example.
Right.
But like another thing is um, at some point, somebody's going to create a social app where I'm following you, and I also like content about basketball, and I like content uh, about I don't know, you name it, like UFOs. Then when like that's my data. Nobody cared. Like nobody's going to buy my and by nobody I mean just like a general user. No one wants to buy my interest graph. No one wants to buy my social graph. But if I go to another social app and there's like an ad network, like I can sell access to that data to an advertiser so that the platform can like show me like high performing ads. And the way we're doing it on Instagram right now, but I can take that with me everywhere as opposed to just the algorithm that I've created on Instagram or TikTok. Like that's uniquely possible with Web3. It's not something that any Web2 company can do because this database is like
Right.
available for everyone to access, but that I control.
I've never thought about that in that you're so true. It's so true, but I've never thought about it in that sense of like, "Oh, I own all of this and it goes wherever I go." In the Web 2 world.
Yeah, and there's like a lot of other like I can just list an infinite number of creative use cases for this. Like, for example, if somebody wanted to create a software product that had that operated as like a similar status symbol to something like Supreme,
Mhm.
like limited supply, limited access, limited drops, and only so few people can get it. Like you can tokenize access to that app, and people can resell access to an app that is sort of presents itself as like a status symbol. Like that becomes possible where you can make limited edition software like that's never existed before. And then like when I use uh all these AI chat apps, like sometimes I'm asking it like, hey, I have this pain like in my you know, like in my diaphragm, am I having a heart attack? Like if I own my medical data, I can control when I share that with a model so that it has context on like all of my medical history without sharing that on like some on OpenAI's server
Yep.
and like releasing that information to the public because it's like pretty sensitive, pretty personal information.
Yep.
Or like I'll give you one more and then I'll stop ranting. But like
No,
when you
I want you to rant. That's why I had you on. I wanted you to rant for an hour straight.
okay. This is my last one, and then we can dig into something else. But like when you rent an apartment, have you ever rented an apartment before?
I have, yes.
Okay. Um, when you go through that process of like you have to share your social security number, your
Mhm.
tax forms, your bank statements, and you have to do all of that over email to some person you've never met before. It's like such a weird experience, but it's just
It
normalized. It's the standard when you want to rent.
it felt like almost like an overreach. Like, I get it, like, you're renting me an apartment, but, like, I was like, "This feels so, like, egregiously crazy that I'm about to email this stuff, or, like, I'm uploading it to this server, and it, like, I don't is it gonna stay there? Are they gonna have access? Is this gonna" like, I genuinely remember the times that I've rented, I've been like, "This seems broken."
Egregious, truly egregious. But like blockchain allows you, like there is blockchain technology that lets, say, a landlord check if I meet the minimum income requirement without actually looking at my income,
Yep,
or check that I have a social security number and that I'm a citizen without actually sharing like my social security number or something like that, or like my
exactly.
passport.
Yeah, no, that I mean, and we've seen this other like, even in the blockchain too, like, without having to disclose any of this, you just it's a like a Boolean, like, you get a 0 or a 1. Yes, he meets the standard, but all that other information's held back. I totally see that becoming a standard use case, um, as Web3 technology gets integrated into more and more things, and it should. I hope it does. One area that you talked about there that's interesting, and I'm curious to get your take on is, using ChatGPT to ask questions, etc. The chat interface has become a huge UI where, you ask a terminal question, it spits out context. But we've also started to see UI become generated by within these interfaces. I released something this morning that showed generative UI from output. But we've also even seen how we interface with software and a lot of different, even companies change with AI's introduction. What is your take on AI's place within the UI UX world?
In general or in crypto?
I mean, we could talk in general. I think crypto obviously has some specifics of it, but I'd say in general.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we associate AI with chat, and that's like a really good form factor for now. But if I think about like the role of a designer in a well-designed piece of software, it's to anticipate the thing that you're trying to do and then give it to you within reach. Like, um, and I think AI in a software app can basically tailor the way buttons are presented. It can tailor. You know what is interesting about AI is that you might not even need buttons. Like, um, uh, let's use Amazon as the example.
Okay.
I buy my laundry detergent from Amazon, and uh, Amazon is really good, has really great UX for suggesting when I want to repurchase laundry detergent. So if every 2 months, I repurchase the same laundry detergent, when I go to my checkout, it'll ask me like, "Do you also wanna add this because you purchased it, 2 months?" Like, it's really great UX because it's anticipating that I might want to buy laundry detergent because I've done it on this, like,
Exactly.
rhythm this, like, consistent rhythm. And, um Amazon also has a great UX for the subscription service. Like it anticipates that I might want to have this, every 2 months without even having to press a button. But this example can exist when AI has the context of the actions that I take on Amazon, where like I never even need to hit that button. It can just be like a push notification
Yep.
where, hey, you might be low on laundry detergent. Do you want me to place this order? And it just could just be a confirmation. Like I really love the UX of Apple Watches when you're sending a message on iMessage. I don't know if you've ever done this before,
Yep.
but if you use the Siri function on your watch to compose a message and send it, it doesn't give you the button to submit the message to send it. It gives you the button to stop the message after like 10 seconds. So it's like, okay, I know you want to send it. You can just like compose a message and put your hand down, stop. You don't have to look at your watch anymore, and then it will send. But it gives you time to like undo it. And I think a more AI powered interfaces are going to be that way, but it's like anticipating the patterns that you have within an app. And instead of like giving you a button to push, it's going to give you a button to revert something that you might think it's done correctly. And I think that's super powerful. It's like it'll decrease the number of taps and clicks and buttons that we have to do because it already kind of knows what we want to do based on like our behavior and our patterns. So to me, that's the most powerful vision for like how AI can change the way we interact with software. And there's a lot of people talking about like generative interfaces where like everybody sort of gets their own version
Yep.
of the button and gets their own positioning of the button, but sometimes the button doesn't need to exist at all. And I think that's like the step past that, which is way more important.
That is so true. Yeah, the button, instead of having to force that actual interaction, remove the button, make it something that, you only have to use if you actually truly do need to. Specifically within crypto, where do you see that minimization of interactions and button clicks happening? And I guess specifically with the introduction of AI.
I think it's everything I just described on steroids because crypto has way more buttons than more apps that we like. It just requires so much input and so much thinking. Like you have to think about fees, you have to think about chains, you have to think about like which website to go. Like if I want to swap from Ethereum, like if I have an Ethereum meme coin and I want to swap that for a Solana meme coin, there are many ways to do it. The most common and easiest path to that is to like open up your Phantom wallet because it supports both of those chains. And then I have to sell the meme coin to Ethereum and then sell Ethereum to Solana and then sell Solana to the Solana meme coin. Are you tracking so far?
I am, yes.
Okay. And then I also discovered like Relay, for example, which is it's one swapper that lets you do cross-chain swaps and it's like very low fees. But even then, like I have to select the chain, I have to select the token, I have to like make all these selections to just get like a simple swap. Like all I want to do is swap ski mask dog for Trump coin. Like it's as simple as that. And AI abstracts all that away. And sometimes it might not even have to be like a swapper. You can just like speak it or type it. And I think that's why the chat interfaces are really particularly valuable for crypto because like intent can be really clear.
This is true. Yeah, that just saying, like, "I want exactly this," and that can't be skewed in, like, a crazy way. But also,
And
like, all those little things in between, swapping from this to that, the bridging, finding optimal gas, making sure, like, that be handled behind the scenes for you if that like, an AI.
yeah, and the thing about crypto is that like a lot of those decision points are assumed. Like I can't think of a single scenario where I would want to pay a higher gas fee or find a more expensive route. Like,
Yep.
did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. Uh, I think we're still good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying, but
I mean, you might wanna pay a higher gas fee if, like, you're minting something, or you're trying to, you know, do something in congestion is very high. You might need that to get the transaction through.
yeah, but the
Um,
assumption is that it's like the lowest possible gas fee. And then like this is
mm,
the really cool part about AI assistance in crypto is that like it can ask me, "Hey, the gas is really high, congestion is really high. How bad do you want this thing?" Versus like, man, I remember the gas wars we used to have in 2021 for NFT mints, where it was like you had to learn about. I don't even remember the terms for it anymore, but it was like the network fee and then basically the tip for the mining reward. It was like I don't even know if any of that is in play anymore, but like most of that's assumed to optimize. Like, okay, give me use a network fee that's high enough for this thing to go through immediately, but the lowest possible version of that. Like, you have to do that
Yeah.
math in your head versus like the AI can do that within milliseconds.
Yep. Exactly. I think it's gonna be crazy. I think we're gonna see, we're gonna look back at even 21 and, the 2021, beginning of that cycle to where we'll be in, like, even a year from now, and we'll be like, "Oh my god, like, I can't believe I used to spend, like, 5 minutes going through that swap," or, like, getting money, onto, like, Hyperliquid from mainnet means I have to go swap, I have to then bridge, and then I have to deposit, where I think you'll be at a point where you can just click one button or like, say one thing into a terminal and it just happens for you.
Totally.
And all that's verified and your wallets are, there's abstraction happening there and it's just instant. And you just go, wow. And so the
And
general
that's
public who's coming in, they're like, well, this is how it has always been, right? Or this is how it should be. And you're like, no, 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 no. Like, you didn't grind your teeth the way we have.
yeah, and all this is for us to like do day-to-day crypto activity. But if you think about like someone's first crypto interaction, like someone who's never used a wallet before, who's never bought or interacted with the blockchain ever, like their first interaction is likely today in 2025 that they're going to download an app that has like an onboarding flow that has an on-ramp step. Like if you want to use Moonshot, you have to load 500 bucks using whatever on-ramp tool. But like I think agents will be a critical part of bridging like our Web 2 financial life with our Web 3 financial life. And there's a world I think very soon that will exist where like an agent can take money from my bank account and put it in my wallet without me having to like actually make that connection. And
Oh,
so if you think about somebody using crypto for the first time in a way that's powered by AI, it can just be like, I have this much money in my bank account. I want Trump coin. Like it doesn't even have to just be abstract away the chain, abstract away the swap widget. You're abstracting the on ramp, you're abstracting the off ramp, and even beyond that, you can say, like, if you think about all the steps that go from selling, my AI XBT coin to buy a new TV, like you have to sell that into Solana, send that to your exchange, off ramp it to your bank account, go to Amazon, find the TV you want, make that purchase with your credit card. Like think about all of those steps. Like you can shrink that down into just like one sentence and be like, buy this TV with this meme coin. And all those steps can be completed by an agent.
that that is actually crazy to think about. I hadn't thought about that side of the impact that it would have. I mean, that's crazy. That removes so much barrier to entry for so many people, and it makes it feel almost almost like beyond simple. Like, how could that be too complex for anybody?
It's kind of exciting to think about.
It's
I
very
don't I,
exciting.
I don't think we're that far from it.
The timelines are moving very fast. I don't think people realize that every single day we're getting we're just getting so much closer. And a lot of this has to do with just having the right APIs, the right, infra on the back end. And once it works one place and, it kind of becomes public or, public domain knowledge of how it's been done, and it disperses through the entire ecosystem very quickly.
And man,
Um,
it's there. It's all there. All the infrastructure is built. Like I don't care who says we need more infrastructure. It's there. It exists. And then the only improvements that need to be made to infrastructure are the ones that have UX implications, like ways that people can interact with bridging better or ramping better or swapping better or routing better. But like agents can take care of all that. Like it's sort of just leveling up the crypto infrastructure in a way that like we don't really even need to think about it. We can just like have the agents sort of figure that out instead of re-architecting things so that they can be more standardized or so that they can be these are like options that the user can have at the interface level. But man, if I think about timelines, like if you asked me 6 months ago if I'd ever build an app by myself, because I've the same way I went down the NFT rabbit hole, I'm going down like the AI assisted coding rabbit hole,
Hmm.
and I've just been hacking away at Cursor and these other AI assistant coding tools. And like it's not easy, but like I can make an app, and if I think about what that reality was like 6 months ago, I'd have told you you're crazy, you're insane. There's no way, there's no possible way, but I can do that now. And I can't even imagine what the next 6 months are gonna look like. Like 6 months feels like the world will be as unrecognizable as it would like in a decade. There's so much happening.
I think next week will shock people. I'm very, very tapped into the AI space, and I understand what tech is coming out, what labs are releasing what. I mean, obviously this week was DeepSeek's announcement, but I think into this weekend, Monday, Tuesday, by this time next week, your view on how you make apps, I think, will be greatly different. That is my prediction.
What is this
Um,
alpha? This is very compelling.
I would just say there's better, stronger models that will hit public domain in the next few days here.
Okay,
Um,
so I'm currently banging my head against the wall trying to get a bug resolved in Cursor. Should I just stop and wait until next week?
I mean, I'm sure you could get it solved with what you have, but I genuinely think that what we just saw happen this week was like the first of and I hate to always say this for the people listening to these. I say it and I say we're in like a nuclear arms race for AI, which makes it sound like there's a winner and a loser, but to an extent we are in a almost like a dick measuring contest globally of like who can do like build the best, the smartest, the cheapest, fast, like whatever it might be AI. And I think a lot of people will have their clapbacks to DeepSeek, and yeah, I think we'll see those roll out over the next few days.
Amazing.
All the training around that has been very clearly underway. Um, so yeah, it's what we think is reality today of like achievable and speed is way different in a week from now. And that's not this case specifically, but that's been that case, the same case for weeks and months now. It's just way more public and covered by the media, and more people are talking about it. Um, which is why it's so exciting. It's the most exciting time to ever be alive. Um, I'd love to chat into on the UI side of things. You've posted a ton about your design every days. Even today, you mentioned and you tweeted about Dialect, who posted a product experience for users. They said they had prediction markets and text messages, etc. But you said it would be a shame if it never got built. I'm curious on your like we see a lot of people come out with really, really fancy UI, these really fancy almost user flows and frictionless things, but we never I feel like we never see them hit the market, right? It feels like it's a marketing stunt, but we just never get there. Why is that?
Okay, for context, for that tweet, I made that animation for dialect.
Okay.
For yeah, I was working with Solana dialect to try to like find meaningful use cases of blinks. I think blinks is a completely different conversation, but I think that's something that like still to this day no one's talking about enough. I think it's like there's a lot of really cool things there. But to answer your question, I think you'd be surprised at like how many things are being built.
Mm,
There are like several concepts that I've put out that have made it into um, one or many apps. And like there are a lot of founders and a lot of like product people that are nice enough to like DM me and or like mention like, hey, thanks, like your design inspired this idea. And
right.
I think that's kind of what motivated the content series to go for as long as it did was because uh, there was like real time feedback of like people taking action and not necessarily on like the exact idea that I would post, but it would like trigger some other idea that would trigger some other idea. And there was just like, it felt like Twitter's a great place to ideate in public, and I think it has actually resulted in a lot of really interesting product features that have made it into apps. So I think I'm just going to challenge the notion that like things don't get built, and I think it's easy for me even to be in my desk waving my magic wand, even like in this interview talking about all the possibilities and be like, yeah, somebody should build it. Like it's not that easy, and I think people that are building things like deserve an insane amount of credit. Like any idea that I can make in 30 minutes in Figma and post on Twitter is 3 to 6 months of engineering time to actually make it real. And so I think like I ended the content series last Saturday, and part of the motivation to do that was like, okay, there are enough ideas in this body of work. Instead of just like every day generating new ideas, I think I need to go back, figure out a way to like revisit old ones, continue resharing them, and then like I can go down the list and check off things that I shared like over a year ago that I'm not taking credit. Like I didn't necessarily inspire them. Like a lot of these ideas are kind of obvious. I'm just giving them form and shape and just giving it a visual that have made it into like the everyday wallet experience, the everyday like exchange experience, like the everyday swapping experience, the everyday minting experience. Like these are just things that we're all kind of thinking about collectively. And yeah, I would just challenge the notion that it's not being built. And that tweet, the joke that like it'd be a shame if it wasn't being built, like I don't know, that was kind of like a stretch to say you can directly sell an NFT in your Twitter feed, without having to like list it on a marketplace.
Mhm.
It's still really hard to build, but I would just love to see it, and just knowing that like there is technology available to make that possible, and but it's still a reach to like actually execute it in a way that scales.
It's true. Yeah, and I think that's a fair rebuttal to my and I obviously was reaching and trying to be a little bit controversial there, but I think that is a fair point to a lot of this also takes time and it's you can't just wave a wand and Figma comes to life. Although I I feel like we're getting to that point where very soon you can basically just click generate within Figma and it'll appear. I feel like that's not too far off. Um, what is your design process? Is it Figma?
Yeah, almost exclusively. Um, to be honest, I've even ventured more into like the AI assisted coding to make prototypes. I've done it a couple times for the content, like putting out um, like HTML prototypes on Twitter, just doing screen recordings of stuff that are made with code. Not that I made with code, but that the AI made with code.
Mhm.
And yeah, in an ideal world, like I'm using Figma less and less and just like prompting these actually built prototypes. Um, but yeah, man, Figma has dominated the design industry for like software designers. And you need things like After Effects and other third-party tools to make the fancy animations. But for actually making software, like Figma and code is the workflow.
I think that's helpful for a lot of people who might be listening and be like, "I have a great idea. Where do I start?" One one area I'm curious to get your opinion on here, is on who you think is doing it the best within the Web3 space. Who is crushing it? If you wanna throw out who you think has missed the mark, feel free to do that, but I'd love to focus maybe on who's doing it the best, and setting the best example in the space.
It's such a tough choice, and I feel like if I answer that directly, I'm going to slight a lot of people that don't deserve to be slighted.
Well, okay, not like the best, but I'm saying like, oh, this company has like for this side of things has done really well with this activate like with this design implementation.
Let's let's start first by saying who's done the worst,
Okay, I love that.
because I don't know if my answer will surprise you, because they're extremely successful and have by far one of like I'm okay. I think Pump.Fun is terrible.
Oh, I my rebuttal to that would be isn't is almost their terrible design a giga-brained way of saying, like,
That's what people
what
keep telling me. Explain that to me, please.
I think in them not caring and oh, no, maybe it's not they don't care, but them not trying, it doesn't try to be something that it isn't. Like, if it was all buttoned up and professional and they were trying to LARP as, the best coins get launched here, this is where the next great billion-dollar company is gonna come out from. That versus, well, this is a casino. This is you are
Okay,
coming
wait, wait,
here.
wait. I don't when I say I think Pump.Fun has a bad design, I'm not talking about visually. Like,
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm not referencing, like, that it looks ugly or that it's a
I
beautiful app or that it's polished or not.
Yep.
Like, let's put the polish aside.
Okay.
I tried to launch a token on Pump.Fun. I use crypto every single day. I have no idea how to do it. I launched the coin. I don't even know where it is. I don't know, like, I don't know how the bonding curve works. I don't know how to get supply without having to, like, I think I did something wrong. I failed at launching a token. I tried to launch a token on Pump.Fun. I couldn't.
It is I will say that it is not intuitive, sure, when you do it from what is going to happen. I think understanding, like, here's the name, putting everything in, "Hey, this is how much SOL I wanna buy on initial supply," but yes, once you click that, you're kind of like, "What the fuck? Now what? Now what? What, like,
Now
where?"
what?
Yeah, I agree
And
there. I think that
there's no, like, good UX is basically just a way of presenting the conversation that the screen is having with the stuff happening in the back end. And when I launch a token, there's no indication of where the supply is. Like, there's no message, there's no bubble, there's no copy, there's, like, nothing indicating to me that, like, where the supply is, what the supply is, how much supply I have. And then I think, you know, like I mentioned before, good design anticipates what you wanna do. It's if you wanna launch a token on Pump.Fun, like, it's not just about clicking the buttons. Like, you actually have to think and be creative around, like, what is the name of this token? What is the description of this token? What image do you wanna use? Like, enough people can launch tokens where there's, like, I don't know if this if see, I'm doing this thing again where I'm going into, like, this greenfield space, and I don't even think this is relevant to the conversation, but, like, there are ways in the interface where you can help somebody think about what to write in a way that, like, makes the token more presentable. Like,
hmm,
there are all these moments in just the token launcher itself where it's, like, rigid, it feels like a grind, it's so confusing and hard to use and requires a lot of effort and a lot of practice and reps. Like, only power users know how to use Pump.Fun. And then, like, let's go to the discovery side, the collecting side. like like, I'm not even talking about the shaking yellow or the ugly greens, or, like, forget again, let's put the visuals aside. I see a token that I want to buy. I hover my mouse over the card and I go to click it, but the grid has shifted. I have to chase this thing around the screen to click it. It makes my skin crawl just, like, thinking it's so stressful to be like, "I have to time this click perfectly because it's gonna move."
but, like, my for I don't know what it is about that, but to me that, like, pseudo how shitty that is and how you're, like, literally chasing a coin to me feels almost meta. I know I'm, like, reaching here, but to me, it just like, Pump Fun is Pump Fun. Like, they have defined their own little, like, don't expect anything different than this, and if you do, it goes somewhere else. But you really can't, right? Like, Pump Fun is where the attention is, and I think that's what's allowed them to get away with having, like, letting people like yourself feel like, "Well, what the fuck is going on here?"
I mean, I'm having a recency bias here because I was like, right before I jumped on this live stream, I was having an exchange with Elon, and, like, one of the things he mentioned, which is, like, top of mind for me, is that most users are financially motivated, and
Mhm.
this was the same thing that happened in 2021 when I'm talking about, like, my experience, your experience, anyone who's buying NFTs, like, you need to have a lot of patience to figure out how to use it and how to trade it, how to find the thing, how to track the floor price. When there's money to be made, like, it doesn't matter how bad something is designed. Like, it just becomes like enough motivation where you tolerate it. So, that's just another way of me saying, like, I've heard people describe it the way you're describing it, and I I hate to admit it, but it sounds like cope, it sounds like like a false justification, but we're all just there trying to make money, and we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna ignore, like, all the difficulties.
Yes, it is financially motivated 100%. 100%. 100%. Is that the only one that you look at and you're like, absolutely failure, like, horrible? Is there anybody else that you're like, "Stop, don't do this ever again?"
MetaMask, but we don't even have to talk about that. I think everyone already understands, like, how painful that experience is.
Yes. I
Um,
I don't know what's going on there. Whoever if you're anybody from MetaMask is listening, please reach out to my brother here. Please, for the love of God.
I also think, like, all the see, it's tough because when you ask me that question, the first things that come to mind are, like, meme coin and trading apps. And I
Mhm.
know that crypto and blockchain is so much broader than that, but I think, like, the most relatable examples are the ones where, like, the most people are, which is trading meme coins. And I think that, like, Deck Screener and Bird Eye and Photon, like, all these really dense um, interfaces. I think they're bad, but also because there's this like first principles thinking in design is like you have to first understand who you're designing for and what their expectations are, what their mental models are, what other tools they use, what their visual environment is like. Somebody who's trading a meme coin, like when you design all these like dexes, like Deck Screener, it's actually a good thing to make it look like or even Hyperliquid is a good example of this too. You have to make it look like a Bloomberg terminal because that's the expectation when you're a power trader. Like, you need all this information at your fingertips at the same time. Like, you need to make fast decisions, and you need a lot of information to make these decisions. And so when I look at these interfaces, I'm like, "This is horrendous." Like, it takes me a while because I'm not an active or experienced trader where I have to like learn the layout, learn where to find information. Even when I go to DexTrainer right now, it's so hard for me to find the contract address. And I feel like I'm relearning it every time I'm going to fetch a contract address. But I don't know. I guess the way I justify that is like people are just used to these Bloomberg trading like interfaces. So maybe it's not bad design because it matches the expectations of what people think trading interfaces should look like. But for me, I'm like, man, we can air some of this out. Let's use some more negative space. Let's like just try to focus in on like and again anticipate what the key details people are looking for on first impression across like the general population. Let's just focus that on the screen. Let's create better hierarchy so that you can scan it better, move stuff into the peripheral. Whereas everything is like the same font size and it's just like like barfed all over the screen.
Yep. Yeah, let's move away from that. It's I feel like we're moving in the right direction as an industry. Um, one area also, and not to, if you wanna talk about, like, who's doing stuff well or other companies are doing stuff wrong, but, like, one thing I talked with, Justin Taylor deeply about was the lack of companies building for mobile first. And obviously, the statistic is, like, somewhere between, like, 60 and 80% of users are, using their phones instead of their desktops for a lot of this stuff now. And for some of these companies, it is not a mobile first view. It is literally just desktop view on your phone. It's janky. It sucks. What is your take? Do you think that is the correct thesis for anybody building right now? Is that they should be building mobile first?
Yeah, and I think everybody understands that. And I actually do think that there I think there are enough mobile experiences. So when I reference like Deck Screener, it's like a specific subset of trading audiences. Those are really serious investors. But like, I mean, Moonshot, Vector is doing a really good job. The Tensor guys made this like social trading app.
Crushing it.
Um, yeah, and like, I mean, I think there's still some room to improve on Vector, but I think because it's mobile is like a big part of the reason. I tweeted the other day why I think the founders of Vector are doing a really good job because they have like a very good like I don't know, they do a really good job of like challenging assumptions, using like they almost use the lean startup method to build this mobile app. Like they're just like really good at approaching like how to introduce new features, what sort of patterns they want to use. Um, and they're just kind of like plugged in. But I think there are a lot of apps like Vector and like Moonshot that exist right now. Hype is another one, and there's like more social versions of this. So like Friends, which is more like an Ethereum native. They have Solana support, but like a lot of Farcaster people use that one. It's like a chat app. I did a post uh, on New Year's Day that was like a recap of 2024 and all my favorite apps. And so in there, I'm mentioning all this stuff like why Vector is so good. Like Rally does a good job, which is like a portfolio tracker. What else was in there? I think wallet apps are doing a really good job of helping you discover things. Um, and wallet apps are becoming more social. So like the wallet interface, I think is still completely underrated with how good the UX has gotten there. Like every wallet that anyone's using, with the exception of like MetaMask and a few others, have done a really good job of taking all these elements from these websites, like these web apps, these desktop first experiences, and just like putting them in the surface area that you spend the most time. I think
Right.
that's critical. So like I'm going to challenge that notion too. I think the space is doing an incredible job of being mobile first within the last like 6 months, especially.
I appreciate you challenging and or I think in this case correcting me on some of this stuff. Obviously, I'm trying to learn from who I consider the expert in the space on this stuff. Um,
Well, this is coming from somebody who spent the last 2 years literally complaining about the same thing. Like I am the most annoying, like whiny, like the UX sucks. So I'm in your chair often, but like I think this is just a really good opportunity for the basics, like who's mobile first? Like, okay, check. We're there. We made so much progress there.
I think, yeah, we've made an insane amount of progress. I think from the NFT side of things, where I also think about though, we have seen a lot of founders or teams. And I'm not going to name anybody, but I have seen them really focus web first. Still like on the gaming side, even like actually all of these are almost on the gaming side that I'm thinking of.
You wanna name
Um,
names?
I think Pixel Vault, uh, I think Bored Ape Yacht Club's stuff has been a little bit lagging on the mobile side first. I know they have Dookie Dash, but Project Dragon is completely web first. Um, Treeverse from Loopify. I'm an investor there, and I would love to see that on phones first, but I believe it's web only. And
Well,
then
here's the thing, like, gaming apps in particular, if you are mobile native, there's still this loophole of, like, if you conduct a transaction in the app, you have to pay the App Store tax.
true.
So that might not even be like a product
That is
decision, that's a
true. That
business
is
decision.
Yeah, I didn't thought of that actually as much as I probably should have.
It's 30%, it's insane. Like, if I buy something,
It's
even
extortion.
even using
It feels
crypto.
like extortion to an extent, right? Like, I
You know who's doing a good job of getting around it? Like, Zora has done a good job of finding ways to create a native mobile app, where you can, like, do crypto. Like, you can mint open editions, and Rodeo, is also doing a good job. They're using a progressive web app, which means, like, you open the app on your browser,
Yep,
and then you install it on your homepage, and then it feels like a native web app, and so that
correct.
way you don't have to go through the App Store to, like, mint stuff, and they don't have to pay the App Store tax.
I
So there's,
love
like, ways
Rodeo.
ar what do you like about Rodeo?
Uh, it feel it the vibe of it takes me back to early, like, browsing art blocks days. I don't know what it is. It just
Mm.
I feel like there's no pressure. I feel like I don't feel financially motivated. I feel like I'm just consuming and able to follow and discover. I think discover is the big word here. Uh Amazing art and collect it and just
I don't know how
do
they did it. They just have great art on there.
yeah. I I every
It's
time I
funny that you didn't Go ahead.
No, it's like every time I open it, I'm just like, this is great.
Yeah, it's funny that you didn't even mention, like, the UI or the UX because I think they're doing a great job on that front too. Like, today minutes ago, I just saw that they launched the ability to, like, post a photo or mint a photo without having to app switch. You can collect a photo without having to app switch. There's, like, really good, um, efficiencies that they've made in the app that, like, just lead to a really smooth UX, but you're right, I think the ultimate, I mean, it's the same thing with, like, Pump.fun, like, you're not going there for the interface, you're going there for the tokens, and,
Yep.
like, Rodeo has just done a good job of getting people to make good art there too, and that's sort of the main value proposition. The best design is the invisible one, the one that gets out of the way.
This is true. It feels friction. I keep using the word friction, but it exists. You're like, oh wow, this I didn't think about it at any moment.
Well, that's the thing, and it's so easy to complain about bad UX, and it's so hard to notice good UX, because if it's actually good, you don't notice it.
I I feel like I've gotten a little bit of like a real crash course in like how to actually think about this stuff, which is helpful for me. Um, I Yeah, I just realized I'm thinking about, like, my favorite, like, companies in the space to use, and I didn't, like, think about the UI, like, Hyperliquid to me, I love going there, and I feel I don't know if the word safe is right because 'cause I've lost so much money on Hyperliquid. Um, thank God for that airdrop, but, when I go on there, I just know when I click something or if I need to find something, it's, like, almost instantaneous. It just feels it feels flawless, is the word. Um, and I'd much rather use that than some of these janky dexes that, feel like I have to, like, I'm on, like, on the side, I have to open MetaMask, I have to scroll for tokens, I gotta approve stuff, and there it just kinda happens.
Yeah, and you don't notice it.
Very,
You
very
just you
cool.
just do you just do the thing that you were trying to do.
That Yeah, just do it. I'm curious from your perspective on where things are today, the future, the past, and all of your knowledge. Is there anything that, any companies or any specific features or anything that you're really excited for or on your radar right now?
I'm just gonna go into, interoperability maxi mode and just, like, I just love thinking about that. Like, what data from the blockchain can it's I don't think there's any incentive for existing companies to incorporate this because there's so much value extraction from being, like, a closed, garden around, like, data. So if you think about, like, dating apps, like restaurant bookings, like, um I mean, you name it, like social apps, whatever. Like, there's so much context that you can have about a person, again, without like doxing someone or sharing too many personal details that can solve the cold start problem, that can help you make connections with real people. Like the thread I shared with you a few hours ago, which was like all the interoperability use cases. Like one problem that it solves is like I don't trust Google reviews. I think they're all kind of like scams by like the business owner's friends, like trying to get people to post 5-star reviews. But like,
Right.
what if like how do I use Google Maps and then I see the reviews that like show me what your experience was, as opposed to me just like looking at a bunch of strangers. So again, I'm just reiterating this idea that like interoperability will make the internet like way more valuable and way more useful and way more user friendly and way more meaningful and substantial and make so many more of these like make like better connections. Um, I was gonna say something else, but I lost my train of thought. But I just think that there's still so much work to do beyond like trading and finance, and that's what still keeps me excited.
That is true. Again, but for right now, most people are here just for the money, but there is so much other value and systems and protocols, etc., that enable other little things to happen that people are going to be very excited and find very helpful for their daily lives, especially when it removes when things become convenient for people that become gets them excited. Like I always use the Keurig coffee maker as a great example. Like
Mhm.
Coffee used to be a very inconvenient thing because you had to go, grind the beans, you had to, put the filter in, you had to get the water, and then you had to wait, and it was all this time. Now I literally can click a button, throw a pot in, shut it, hit a button, it's in my hand, and it's faster, more convenient. Um, and I think from a design perspective of actual like process, that is like a huge leap forward, and I think we'll start to see a lot of that happen all again, not in just the financial sector, but in all these other little areas, like you've mentioned, medical, uh, rental, car ownership, housing ownership, physical asset, uh, you know, transferring, things like that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people I get these questions a lot, like, where do you see the future of, like, designed experiences in crypto? And most people associate that with at the lowest level, the most common association is branding, and I'm a horrendous, like, brand designer. Um, and then above that is like, okay, the interface, what do the buttons look like? What are the color choices? Like, what's the architecture of an app? But there's, like, a level above that. If you think about the spectrum of like design decisions, it doesn't just start at, okay, we know what we're going to build. Let's make it easy to use. Let's make it usable and make it user friendly and intuitive. There's also like the design process around making something useful. And so there's this moment where you've decided on what the value proposition of an app is, and then the design work is like, okay, how do you make it easy for someone to extract this value? But like, I think, when I think of the design process, like people in the space designing crypto applications, like a lot of that starts with what is the most useful thing that we can do, and that comes before like all of the visual decisions. If you think about like when you build a building, there's three phases. There's the urban planners, there's the architects, and then there's the contractors that hit hammer to nail. And like urban planning, which is okay, we have a piece of land. What's the surrounding area? What's the best use of this land? And how do we, like how do we make the most of it? Is like a design thing. So you think about like crypto, I think as it matures, as these like mobile decisions get solved, as like the ease of use gets solved, the design process is going to be pushed further and further up the spectrum to these decisions of like, okay, how else can we use this? Like, and that's sort of what's been so gratifying and fulfilling about like the content series of putting out an idea every day. It's as much about what does this look like and how can I get you to imagine using it, as much as it is like, what can we use blockchain for? And like that's as much a design decision as like the stuff you do in Figma. So I think the space is going to like graduate to a point where we'll make trading and swapping and finances so easy that it'll just open up like all these other spaces. Like I think Blackbird's a good example. Like what happens when I can use the blockchain to build relationships and loyalty programs with the restaurants that I go to often? Like how do you tokenize that? Like
Yep.
what and you mentioned car ownership and home ownership and um so like when I the way I see myself as a designer is as much about like what's useful as it is like how can you make it easier to use?
I love that. Absolutely love that. Man, I this is huge for me personally to get to understand. I think even just how I approach products, I've become more I think hands-on with some product stuff over the last few weeks here with stuff that I'm working on. It's made me rethink a bunch of stuff. Not rethink, but definitely like put emphasis on certain areas of it. Um and it's greatly helpful to hear your thoughts on these things. Um OX designer, I gotta thank you, man, for coming on and taking the time to run through all this with us. You're a wealth of knowledge. If people haven't already, they can follow you on Twitter at OX designer. It sounds like you're gonna be putting out kind of you're going back to your design every day. Is gonna be putting out some like refresh thoughts there, but you won't be doing the design every days anymore.
I'll put out some designs when I feel inspired. I just won't be doing it every day anymore.
Okay.
I'm going to try to figure out a way, yeah, to like revisit old designs and try to reconcile that with where the gaps are now. I really want to like try to master AI coding tools and figure out like if I can just put out fully baked apps.
Yep.
So there's a lot of experimentation happening right now, and I feel like I'm just in, it's like a fire hydrant, fire hose amount of stuff where I just need to figure out like, okay, where am I spending my time now?
Love that. Love that. I'm excited for it, man. Well, thank you again for jumping on with us. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Again, if you haven't, make sure you're following him. He puts out some of my favorite content in the space. And I'll make sure to be uh, I think a champion of the Comic Sans movement after this conversation. I'm gonna figure out where I can integrate it and how I can make it part of the movement. So hopefully
I
everybody
love
else
it, man.
listening can too as well. But thank you, man. I appreciate it,
Love
and
it.
catch everybody on the next one. Peace.
This was a pleasure, Hunter. You're fantastic.
Thank
Thanks.
you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words.